Well, Brent, we're live here outside the Connecticut State Capitol. A stark contrast from what you're seeing at the United States Capitol. All is quiet here, and Scott Driscoll, the public information officer for the Capitol Police, told me that they are closely monitoring the situation down in Washington, D.C. They have policies and procedures in place to escalate here if anything should get out of hand, but throughout the day, they have had no credible threats. All right, now to Governor Ned Lamont and his State of the State address, which in many ways he has delivered throughout this pandemic with his COVID-19 response briefings. And again, today in his State of the State, the public health issue continues to dominate the conversation. Absent the usual interjections of applause, Governor Ned Lamont's pre-recorded State of the State began with acknowledging the unusual.
2 years ago, as your new governor, you welcomed me into the room where it happens. This year, that room has become a virtual room.
He trumpeted an optimistic vision for Connecticut.
Connecticut's comeback is happening. Today, I don't want our state to be defined by a COVID crisis.
A COVID crisis mitigated in part by a healthy budget reserve fund.
Fiscally, we're looking like we're managing this very, very well. Because of the budget that passed a few years ago, we've got a large amount of money in our rainy day fund.
Lawmakers told Fox 61 they need to keep their goal attainable in a new normal.
We need to be realistic on what we're going to be able to accomplish. I think our focus, certainly first and foremost, needs to be on this pandemic and getting out of the pandemic.
But Governor Lamont also laid out a few big, bold policy pillars like legal cannabis and sports betting.
Let's not surrender these opportunities to out-of-state markets, or even worse, to underground markets.
Governor Lamont seemed to stress a commitment to equity and the economy.
In this coming year, we will be expanding our commitment to affordable housing, access to broadband, transit-oriented development, open choice school incentives, as well as an expansion of our workforce development and small business growth fund.
The president of the Senate told Fox 61 healthcare is on his to-do list.
There's a clear mandate. I think the people expect us to look carefully at healthcare in the wake of all of the issues that have arisen because of the pandemic, to look at issues like equity and housing.
With vaccines in the spotlight amid the pandemic, Republicans seem poised to stand firmly against eliminating a long-standing religious exemption, which some say is abused.
I'm always concerned when we're treading on people's constitutional rights. And I think the bigger concern I have right now with children in school is getting them back into in-person. But we really need to do an inventory of where these children are on their healthcare schedules. So many of them have foregone vaccinations and routine checkups.
They also oppose taxes and tolls on anything to do with transportation. And lawmakers who I spoke with on both sides of the aisle say that they applaud Governor Ned Lamont's leadership during this time of crisis. The first thing that they'll likely have to decide, however, is if they want to extend his emergency executive powers for the pandemic, which right now are set to expire on February 9th. We're live outside the state capitol in Hartford. Matt Caron, Fox 61 News.